Hello and welcome to the Blessed by Angels podcast. I am so excited to share with you a snippet from a previous session. Now, in this session, it was with a mother and a daughter who was part of the session, and the daughter was feeling a little bit uneasy or a little bit disappointed that she hadn't been feeling her mother around as often. So her mother shares this beautiful analogy about a tapestry. Um, Connecting into how frequency and how she has been a part of her life throughout everything. Such a beautiful reminder. So I can't wait for you to listen in and hopefully you can feel inspired by what is being shared. Welcome to the Blessed by Angels podcast. My name is Jenn Gilbreth. Ever since I was a little girl, I have felt deeply connected to the angelic realm. Over the years, I have dedicated my time and energy towards delivering messages from beyond. Yes, that's right. I talk to dead people, although I don't necessarily consider them dead. In many ways, they are much more alive than us in this physical realm. On this podcast, I will be channeling messages from Spirit. Whether you tune in each week for the new messages or feel like picking a message at random, this podcast is designed for Spirit to lead you to the messages for you here and now. These messages have changed the way I view and play in life. I hope that these messages can do the same for you. That makes sense with you?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just see her, showing up, coming forward, and I see her wanting to just also let you know that even though it feels like she's been distant, I see her saying that she's been showing up in the small details of life. And it's almost like I see her connecting into, like, let's say an Afghan or like knitting, right? Is like every little string, every little line has a huge part to make this quilt. And if there wasn't this one thread, we think, oh, it's just one thread. But if you go deeper, like every little part of this quilt is made up of like hundreds of little threads all together. And I see her saying that sometimes it's you look at the big thread, you're like, wow, that's a big part of this blanket. Whereas if you hone in, it's like that's such a little part that makes up this big giant blanket. And I see her just acknowledging that, like, there are going to be times where we take a step back and are like, wow, I've really felt you in my life a lot. But then there are going to be times where you're in the middle of like knitting or creating this quilt and you kind of forget, not you, but we kind of forget that every little thing has this yarn weaving into it. And so I just see her saying, like, her being a part of your life is really weaving into who you are. And it's in your viewpoints, it's in how you talk, it's how you present yourself. And so I just see her saying, like, please don't feel like I'm not around because I can see myself being weaved inside of your life tapestry or like your blanket. And sometimes I'm so intertwined in it that it almost just becomes like it almost just becomes like knitting. Hey there, I wanted to take a brief moment to thank you so much for listening and being a part of Blessed by Angels podcast. I have found that our angelic team wants to help remind us who and why we are earthside at this present moment. The more that we remember the angelic support that we are given, the easier it is for us to live life to the fullest. So if this message or any of the previous messages from the podcast have really stuck out to you, I would encourage you to send them to anyone who you feel could benefit from the messages. Or if you feel prompted, I would love for you to leave a review on any of the platforms that you are listening on. I would love to hear your feedback. Blessings. Right? It almost just becomes this place, but maybe if someone's knitting and watching a show, it's easy to be distracted by the show and to just kind of go on pilot mode while you're knitting. But if it's like, no, I want to take time to be intentional, I'm going to put on some music and then just going to focus on my knitting. That's a space where it's easier to look at and to remember all the different like threads that are going into this one yarn, this ball of yarn. And so I just see her saying that, she invites you to take that time of like, hey, I really would love to feel you around. I'm going to write in my journal. I'm going to call on you to be here. And if you show up, great. And I just see her saying that she will, but there's the intention um, behind it. And a lot of times, there are times where we're like, wow, I had this really big experience and it just kind of came out of nowhere. But 9 out of 10 times, we can receive these big experiences when we kind of slow the world down a little bit. We quiet out those things that are competing against our attention so we can feel more connected. And I just see her saying that's part of a soul's lesson is there are times where our loved ones, like her, she's like, there are times where I'll come in booming, but more often I'm in the details of the work. I'm in the details of how you're showing up, how you're talking, how you're speaking. And it's kind of almost just like when we can put more intention behind that, we can feel their presence a whole lot more. And so I just see her saying, like, I first want to let you know that I believe in you. I believe in your changes. I believe in what you want to put forward. And she's also talking about your hair. Have you cut it since she's passed or dyed it different colors? Like, I just see her saying you've tried a lot of different things as far as the hair goes, right?
Yes.
And she loves it. She loves that ability for you to be creative with what feels good. And I see her saying that she's loving the color and the texture right now and the cut. But I also see her saying that's time in a season, right? It's like sometimes you want to have dark hair, other times you're like, how about I try lighter hair? And that's also how it is with her showing up is like there are seasons where something might be more predominant, but I just see her laughing and like talking about your hair and how much she loves it and how that's given you a sense of joy of like, wow, I get to try this and what about this? And I don't know about that one. And then it's also like, am I spending the money on this? Like, is it okay to do that? And she's like, if it's bringing you joy and if it's bringing you a new sense of commitment to yourself, invest in yourself. Invest in it because why not, right? Why not do what makes you happy? And I see her laughing because uh, she's like, I didn't always give myself full permission, or I'd make myself bad and wrong if I did something for me that was a little over excessive, right? But she's like, but why not? You deserve it. And so she's even talking about the hair and even like getting new shoes or getting new boots. It's like, yeah, I can have these sturdy boots that have lasted me all winter. And she's like, yeah, but what about the cute boots? Right? There's the practical, but also what about having the cute boots that make you feel good? Right? There's practicality, and then there's like going above practicality to have a little bit of a want. And I see her just like giving you permission to step into that want just a little bit more because when you're in that want space, if it's not like out of jealousy or out of this green gremlin energy, it's like, okay, I want this. It's going to help you push further to get above what you thought was possible, above what feels practical. And so I just see her wanting to help you step out of the practicality even further to like the want, because want brings drive. And drive is what changes things. And so I just see her saying, you don't have to feel like you always have to just be comfortable. Like, how can you push yourself and dream bigger? Because it's in those dreaming biggers that you learn more about your soul. And she's here to help deliver on those things. But when we dream bigger or we have a bigger idea of something, it also makes us rely on something much bigger than ourselves. Because if it's like, oh, what about this? Can my angels team help me? Can I do this? Can I? It's having like a bigger sense of purpose that is a little bit more scary. So it's almost like learning to rely on more than what we can see to have those things become reality. And so I see your mom just going back to Tapestry of how she's interweaved in all of the things. And when you take a step back to see how is my mom still a part of my life every day, you'll still see how involved that she's been, even if it hasn't been those big aha things. Does that make sense? And I also see her seconding what you're. Thank you for tuning in to the Blessed by Angels podcast. It is such an honor to deliver these messages from beyond. If you want to connect deeper,
to your angelic realm and the support team that you have, I have a plethora of resources on my website at blessedbyangels.org. And of course, I'll leave the link in the show notes. You are connected to the divine. Having divine connection is an innate ability that each and every one of us have. Before we came here, we were spirit. And after we leave this realm, we are introduced back into the spirit world. So having spirit-to-spirit conversations and knowings and understandings are innately and infinitely who you truly are. When we step into this body, we tend to forget. We are not separated from the divine. There is just a lack of remembrance. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast, and I look forward to delivering more messages from beyond.